I'm Cyclon, and with less than a week left till the point 3 expansion for Path of Exile 2, the Third Edict, I wanted to share with you what I'm gonna be leveling as for my Spiral Volley Amazon. Now the build guide for that will be tomorrow. This is just gonna be about the best way that I currently aware of to level either a Ranger into a Deadeye or a Huntress into an Amazon. And once the build is set up, once we are like, this is level 41, so this is what you can expect in Act 4. We can do some absurd damage numbers, but more on that in a bit. Let me put on some background footage and then I'm gonna explain a few things that we need to be aware of for this. First of all, I have in the description you're gonna find a mobility links and a link to my website. Either of those you can go over and you can get the PoB. I will also on my website make any updates in the coming days I will put there. And if we do get any updates for this before launch, I will also update, of course, the written guide and the PoBs. Now, right now, we do not know the passive tree 4.3, and we don't know their extension of all the gem changes, and we don't know if GGG will change any numbers on gems before launch. It did happen in point 2. We had some major changes on the launch of the point 2 expansion, without it being mentioned in the patch notes, so I expect something to happen again. That said, I need to get this out at some point, so I might as well get it out now and just give you the promise that if I'm aware of any changes, any major things that are changing, I will update the PoB, I will update the written guide so that you can get the actual proper information. And if we don't get anything till launch, I will update right as I finish the campaign. I will likely go to bed, and when I wake up from the first thing in the morning, what I will be doing is update the written guide, update the PoBs, so that you have the actual proper information, tested how I went through campaign, what felt smooth to me, so you have the smoothest timing campaign possible. Now, that is the negative part of what we do not know yet, but there's also a positive part about what we do not know yet. There are two things that upgraded this build potentially. One is Electrocuting Arrow. If I pause this here and we go to the patch notes. Electrocuting Arrow is no longer a movement skill, meaning we don't have this attack time happening to us anymore. Instead, we can immediately use it and it causes an explosion, applying the electrocuting rod to all enemies hit. This means that it might just be a better Stormcaller Arrow, as its damage numbers right now are better than Stormcaller Arrow. However, given what they did to Stormcaller Arrow in point 2, I expect something similar to Electrocuting Arrow in point 3, and its damage numbers are gonna look significantly different from right now once the patch goes live. The other thing that we can do is Freezing Salvo. So there is a change to Freezing Salvo that they revealed on the revealed stream, that Freezing Salvo will target these ice crystals that we can spawn with things like Escaping Shot, but they also added a buff called Ice Tipped Arrows. Whenever we hit with that attack that we are buffing with it gets buffed up to 3 times, we create ice fragments. Now this should in theory work with lightning rod, so when we hit the ground we create these ice fragments as we hit the ground, and then we can use Freezing Salvo targeting those ice fragments and dealing their damage. This in theory is gonna result in absolutely absurd single target damage numbers. Because of that, it's going to result in those numbers. I expect there to be a change in the behavior, a change to the gems, a change to the numbers, or anything that will prevent us from using that. If it's not changed, this is definitely gonna be insane for us. So those were the two things that might improve our build, but we don't know how it's gonna behave yet. The last thing I want to mention before we get into the actual guide is the difference between Amazon or Huntress into Amazon and Ranger into Deadeye. The Ranger into Deadeye has a stronger starting node. So if we look into passive building on Ranger, we have that note here, Vile Wounds. On a Deadeye, on a Huntress, this one gives accuracy rating, so it's not as great. But on a Ranger, this gives us just 3 damage. So this note is incredibly powerful because Stormcaller Arrow is almost guaranteed shocking, and on single target we do so many hits with Lightning Rod later on that we are again just easily killing everything and shocking it a lot while we are killing it. But this is a really great early note to pick up for 3 damage. On a Huntress, we do not have access to that node, so instead what we are doing, we take those traveling nodes. Now, outside of that, the trees are very, very similar until we pick up Lightning Rod. So I have here different leveling trees. I'm not going to go into the full detail, I'm just quickly going to be going over them. because there's one thing I want to mention here. Primal Sundering is something we do not need to pick up early. We want to pick that up later. So after we grab Lightning Rod, we want to pick up Primal Sundering. The reason for that is, again, a secret, not a secret thing, but a side thing they did in the patch notes. If we look for Elemental Exposure, it has now 50% less effect on unique enemies, but if we go down here, curse skill apply, but now can't apply those debuffs to enemies that are significantly higher level than the skill's own level requirement. This means that it's at some point gonna fall off, but for Act 1, we will be able to use Frost Bomb. Frost Bomb applies an elemental exposure on the initial by 20%, and then each pulse, if we are heading in-game, I can show it here. Each pulse, so initially they don't happen, but at the end of its explosion, we apply a lot of pulses. Each pulse applies another 2%. This means for Act 1, we should be able to apply exposure to every boss we face. And this exposure is not all exposure, meaning also lightning exposure, and resulting in the resistance being reduced from the enemies. Now, we can't use Penetrate on top because Penetrate goes only to a minimum of 0. Once the exposure drops off is when we want to pick up Primal Sundering, and when we are at the bottom of the tree, Flash Storms, and if needed, Forces of Nature. Now for campaign, enemies only have up to 30 res as far as I'm aware, so we only need those 2 nodes, but once in maps we can also pick up Force of Nature. That I wanted to pull ahead. So coming back to the other difference, is that once we have our Ascendancy and we have Lightning Rod, we have critical strikes on Amazon, meaning we can now scale accuracy and crit already while in campaign. So we have Falcon Dive, Pinpoint Support, and Pinpoint Shot, and Tainted Strike, results in us actually having a noticeable chance to critically strike enemies. Now, PoB does not reflect that, but in-game it does definitely feel significantly more powerful. Like the chunks of burst we don't do are just insane. So this is my assumption, at least, on critic strikes on the new build. Even with the nerf critic strikes, we're gonna be fine. But on the Deadeye, we don't have access to that. The Eagle Eyes node that give 10 critical weakness when we proc a mark on an enemy, it's only gonna be on bosses, and we need to proc the mark first, and we need to do it twice as far as I'm aware to get 20 stacks. I just think that it's not gonna be smooth enough to pick over point blank. So we just do that on a Deadeye instead, and we will need to respec. Now that said, do make a choice based on what you think you level with when you select your League starter build. So if you go, for example, Spiral Volley Amazon, you go Amazon. If you go Lightning Arrow Deadeye, you go Deadeye. Outside of that, I have in the written guide here, if we look to the passive tree, where is it? Passive tree here. Both for the Ranger and the Huntress, these are the snapshots at level 60 of the passive tree, how we want them to look, and the node priority, as well as mentioning the early pathering over either the Vile Wounds or the Dex nodes, grabbing only the small nodes before Primal Sundering. So our progression on Deadeye, for example, would be Hold Instinct, Vile Wounds, Magmatic Strikes, Catalysis, Acceleration, Rushing to Lightning Rod. Then we pick up Primal Sundering and Flash Storm. We can pick up Forces of Nature, Escape Velocity, and Freedom of Movement for faster moving. And then we have Proficiency, Falcon Technique, Enhanced Reflexes, and we're gonna be going for Kite Runner as the last node that gives us slightly more movement speed. That would be, for example, for the Deadeye. Again, Huntress, we have it just the same here. Or you can, of course, follow the PoB step by step. I have also added it here if you don't want to have a Mobalytics guide open, fully understandable. The same is for skill gems. I have noted here all the skill gems we want. For the early, where it matters what skill gem order we pick up in, I have also written it again here. What is the order of skill gems we want? Overall, we're going to be using Stormcaller Arrow for clear, Lightning Rod, Lightning Arrow for single target. You can see it here, the absurdity of the single target this build can do. If I let it run here, again, just set it up, nuke the enemy out of existence, and be good to go. And for clear, we can show it nicely here. Stormcaller Arrow will 1 to 2 shot every enemy. The neat part about Stormcaller Arrow for clear is that if we have multiple projectiles, if 2 projectiles hit the same peg like here, and they overlap in the AoE, then all enemies in the AoE of each arrow gets hit by both, taking double the damage, being easier killed, so that's why we need 1 to 2 attacks to clear a peg. Lastly, let's talk about a few neat little things that aren't as obvious. The first thing I want to talk about is how we do our gem changes. We do need to do some quick swapping of gems. Now, I have written down what gems we want to swap, but I want to show it here how I do the swapping. When I'm in a zone and I'm running, and I know I'm facing a boss next, I pick Martial Tempo up, sock it in, and Scatter Shot. I have it so that I only need to move a downward motion, so I always know if I need to move it down, okay, the next empty spot is where I need to move it. This means that I'm never moving it into a wrong socket and then middle of the boss fight I need to swap quickly. And after the boss fight is dead, we usually have a moment where we are placing a portal or doing something. So we have a bit of time to swap back where we can do a little bit more mindful and see that we move the right one back and not that I moved the wrong ones back. But that for the changing of gems, just make it so that you can move it in a clean downward motion and makes it a bit easier to swap. The next thing that is really neat, I already mentioned the Frost Bomb applying all exposure. Now at some point it's going to drop off. When it drops off, we're just going to drop it. We might also just use Escape Shot and Disengage as a mobility skill combo instead. In Act 1, I'm skipping currently the Devourer, or however the Mud Barrows boss is called. So I'm only getting 6 skill gems in Act 1. I'm skipping out of Chain. Unless I get a free support gem drop, then I'm picking Chain up already in Act 1. If I don't have it in Act 1, it's okay, I still do enough damage on the Act 1 bosses, but this way I can pick up Innervate instead, and Innervate helps me with clearing, meaning I kill more enemies in zones, means I get more XP, I have a smoother run. You can also drop Innervate and just pick up Chain and have the single target damage uptime, but your clear will be slightly weaker. Everything else I should be seen in the PoB in the written guide. I also have a notes section here for a bit more of a detailed leveling, what we want to grab when and where. I'm gonna do one final overhaul of these notes in here, what to grab when, on both the Ranger and the Huntress on Friday, so that it's ready for launch. On Friday, please do import the PoB again, just to make sure that you have the most recent PoB. All this being said, hopefully the video was informative. If you enjoyed the video and it was informative for you, I would highly appreciate a thumbs up. If you're still on the fence of it, understandable. But if you decide to use this build guide and you get through campaign with absolute ease, I would highly appreciate it if you could comment back and let me know how well it went for you and leave a thumbs up then. All this being said, have a lovely day and I'll be seeing you either on my next video or live on Twitch. Goodbye.